Right on 9:30 on the Good Sports, 103.9 Triple S FM. Normally we have local sports update, but unfortunately metalhead Gary Stevenson isn't with us today. He's been struck down with a bit of the flu. He's picked up one of those early bugs for the season, getting it over early and done with. So he'll be back tomorrow morning. But now it's time to talk about running, and it's time to talk about running with a little bit of a difference, because our next guest, Nick Gleeson, was recently in the Sydney Morning Herald Half Marathon last Sunday, and the only difference between Nick and myself is that he runs and I don't, and also that Nick is blind and I'm not. Nick Gleeson, good morning.
Good morning, Martin.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Congratulations, firstly, for the great performance on the weekend.
Many thanks.
Is this the first time you've entered in the Sydney Half Marathon?
It is the first time, and it's somewhat tested over the distance in racing terms. The last couple of furlongs I was under the baton, so to speak.
Okay, listen, let's get some background here a little bit about just the race first before we look at a little bit of history on you, Nick.
Yes.
Is that when you're running these half marathons, blind runners, of course you need someone to run with.
That's right.
And what is it, you sort of got a short strap between your wrists?
That's right. You hold a piece of a strap about 10 to 12 inches in length, and I run with a sighted person, obviously, and my running partner, her name is Kathy, so she holds one end, I hold the other. We basically run next to each other, and she hopefully will tell me what's happening and if we're approaching a hill, not too many uphills, hopefully, steps, anything that might be potentially hazardous, other people, other runners. So yeah, that's how we negotiate the course.
And I believe, without any disrespect to any people who are blonde-haired listening this morning, I believe the headline in Sydney was "It was the blonde leading the blind."
Exactly, and that was Kathy's quote. It wasn't mine. I tried to change it. I said I suggested it should be the blind leading the blonde, but they wouldn't have that.
But so how long? So you must have a fairly good working partnership with Kathy then.
Oh, we do, and actually, Kathy was saying last week how many married men can go out with a single blonde and spend 3 or 4 hours a week with them. So we do have a very close working relationship, and she's a great talker, and she talks the whole way around, which is really good because I tend to get quite tired. So it means I can just keep running and Kathy keeps talking, which keeps it nice and interesting.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I suppose you've got to have that teamwork aspect of it. It must be hard to run that close with someone. I know in a pack when you start off, it's that can be close, but all the time for, I mean, you were on the course for over 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes was the time you came in, Nick.
That's right.
That's a long time to be tied to it with a short strap.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose some people would be very envious of my position. But having said that, seriously, it is a long time, and I really did appreciate Kathy's knowledge of me in the last couple of Ks when it did get really tough. It got very, very tough going, and she knew how to get the best out of me and how I would respond.
You're involved with the Achilles running club in Sydney. There's the 3 blind members who are part of the club that ran. Do you have to sort of work on finding a team, someone in the club that you can actually run with, runs at the same pace and has the same sort of ability to run? So you get that, like you were talking with Kathy, like you really must link up with someone who's a similar runner. Yeah,
I think it tends to find someone as you're going along who you're suited to and the suitable speed. And the club itself, Martin, it's made up of not just runners. We have quite a lot of the people are walkers, so we have people who come down every Sunday morning who walk with members of the club who probably aren't quite as lunatics like us who go on these half marathons. They want to come down and just do walking through like Botanical Gardens around Darling Harbour and around the rocks and all these areas. So they have different goals, different aims to what us the lunatics have.
Well, Nick, I'll use your term of lunatics, seeing you started with this one. But if you're a lunatic for doing a half marathon, what do you regard yourself as? Because now you're setting your sights on the New York Marathon in November. Well,
yes, the Achilles Club is very keen to be represented in the New York Marathon. And the 3 of us, we're hoping that all of us or some of us may be able to represent the club. It's a big ask, and most of us the 3 of us, we haven't been training that long. For myself, it's only been 10 months, so I've sort of gone from not being able to run 1K up to possibly running 42 Ks. So it's a big ask, and we're just we're going to keep on training hard and building up, and just hoping things go well and that we can represent our wonderful Achilles club.
And this is the first time you've actually competed in a long-distance event?
Oh, yes. It's the first time I've been beyond the city to surf, which is 14.7, and so it was significantly longer.
How did you feel?
Well...
Keep it clean.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my aim was to run 6-minute Ks, and the plan was going perfectly. I ran the first 5 in 30 minutes dead, and then 10 was in 61, 15 in 91. But after I got 18, and then we started to really feel the pinch. So I lost 9 minutes in the last 3 to 3.5 Ks. But I'll be much fitter for the outing, and again, because I know you're great. Your listeners are great racing people. I'll strip fitter for the run. There's no doubt.
Okay. Well, you've learned a little bit of it. But the other thing about you is just to get some background on you now. You were born in Melbourne in 51, the youngest of 7 children. You lost your sight in an accident when you were 7 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. What happened was I was walking through a supermarket doorway, one of the old-fashioned automatic doors where you stood on the mat and the door supposedly opened outwards. And as I went to go through, it closed. And because of the height of a 7-year-old, the handle of the door actually hit me on the side of the head. And it caused a major retinal detachment. It probably was waiting to happen. It just that was the time that it decided to happen.
That's one of those cruel twists of fate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just part of life, I think. And realistically, and we look at human lives, I think we all face our own personal challenges. And this was just one of that I had to face, and my family had to face. After
that, you went on to St Paul's School for the Blind, and went on then to get a BA at Melbourne University.
That's right. I was wondering whether you're going to tell them I'm really a Mexican, but...
Oh, listen, I don't mind. You know, I'm actually going for the Queenslanders in the State of Origin today just to start a bit of a war here in Canberra.
You'll have some response now, Martin, when I hang up, gee. That's right, but I did. I went to St Paul's School for the Blind, and up until year 8, and then I finished my secondary education at Camberwell Grammar and onto Melbourne Uni. And it's so easy to say those things that you go from one to the other, but it was very difficult, especially in those days when you didn't have things like talking computers. You had to really slog your way through high school, and where community attitudes weren't so good as today. And university was a struggle, and I was a bit unfortunate that I wasn't academically brilliant like some other people. So for me, it was a struggle to get through.
And after you finished university, you found work as a Braille proofreader, and you actually taught sighted people how to transcribe print into Braille.
That's right. It was quite challenging, and it's learning Braille it's basically like learning another language. And some people who are sighted really wanted to do it, but once you started working with them, most never made it because they just weren't really going to reach the standard. But it was so rewarding when you came across, say, the 1 out of 10 who was brilliant and who adapted to the learning and coped and started brailing books. It was wonderful.
And now you're working for the Royal Blind Society in Sydney as a community relations officer. Are you enjoying that?
I am, and I've just actually started a new role as a training officer, which means I'm dealing with larger corporations, organisations like banks, airlines, and we're going in there delivering presentations about how to assist blind and vision impaired people, reassuring them that, okay, the person's blind or doesn't see as well as you, but they're the same as anyone else, and this is how you can approach and this is how you can assist.
Okay, let's get away from the blind aspect, because you're someone that really hasn't let that disability step in your sporting activity way in a big way. I mean, let's go through this. You've represented your country in athletics and cricket. You've abseiled a tall city building, and you've tried tandem skydiving, because I don't think you could do that by yourself anyway, bungee jumping and scuba diving.
That's right.
The one I'm interested here, Nick, is scuba diving. For someone who's unsighted, must be a wonderful feeling of the weightlessness.
Yeah, it is, and I found it fascinating to be able to do an activity where your only form of communication was by feeling each other's hands, and to rely on another fellow human being, and to have the amount of trust. And I remember sort of going down diving, and I wasn't so fortunate in those days. I had a male guy called Ken, who wasn't anywhere near as good as looking as Kathy, but he was superb the way he would take my hand and place it on objects that realistically I would never see again in my lifetime. So the only way that I could learn and to experience that was by touching, and to dive in and over rocks and amongst slimy seaweed was fantastic. I wouldn't have traded it in for anything.
Athletics and cricket, you've represented the country in what competitions?
But as far as athletics, I raced in New York back in 1984 in the 100-metre sprint, and I went to Hong Kong in 82. And cricket, I played nationally for New South Wales as well as Victoria. And fortunately, I was in both winning states when they won national championships. So I was very fortunate.
Well, you're a real turncoat, different states like that. I don't think that's possible.
Well, New South Wales, it's an amateur competition, but New South Wales, I always say, paid more, so I had to move.
Fair enough. I think Victoria looking for an opening batsman or a top-order batsman. You think you could go back? They reckon they're having troubles at the moment.
I think it's Australia, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, have you got any advice for Mark Taylor? He's probably got a similar problem at the moment.
I think maybe I'll send him a blindfold and just rely more on the hearing rather than the seeing. I think
we can't give too many cheap shots to Mark Taylor. It's a tough time for Mark Taylor.
Oh, it is, and I think we're all quietly hoping that things will turn and that the tide will turn and you'll start putting some runs on the board.
About a couple of the other members in your the Achilles Running Club in Sydney, Michael Bassell and Philip Cook, I noticed looking at the times here, they both beat you on the weekend. They did
extremely well. They're both very fit guys who perform very well, and the club, we're all very proud of them. I think none of us were too worried about the time. It was the completing, and the great thing about Achilles is, although we were in a race, we were there to support each other. We weren't too worried about who finished where. We were sort of, at the end, we all said, that's fabulous, we've all survived, we completed it, and the winner was the Achilles Running Club.
And what was the support like from other runners in the race on the weekend?
Oh, absolutely fabulous. It was the amount of support as we passed runners and as they passed us was incredible. They were calling out, and that, I think it was really summed up at the end of the event, where Heather Toolan, the first woman to cross the finish line, came over to the three of us and congratulated us, and even offered to run with Philip Cook in the Ridgeback 14K run in June, and she was absolutely fantastic.
Well, that's a great offer on her behalf.
Oh, yes, and it's just her personality, and to take the time to come and introduce herself, I found it was terrific. Now,
let's get into training for the New York Marathon here. It's a little bit longer than the half marathon.
Yes.
You're going to need a blonde on each arm for this one?
I think so. I think most definitely. I'm still working on that, what I need for that event. But we're preparing, actually, Saturday week we're going in the Lane Cove 10K Sydney Striders race. And all being well, end of June we're going in the Sutherland Half Marathon. So we're very serious about building up the kilometres and working hard towards that marathon.
And finally, just your wife Heather. How does your wife Heather feel about you hanging around with blondes?
No, she doesn't mind, because there's lots of really great-looking males in this Achilles club as well. So she comes down and walks with them quite often on a Sunday morning. So no, she has no objection whatsoever. And I suppose that's the great thing about our club, the Achilles, which we're hoping will develop in other states and territories. That it's a family club. People turn up on a Sunday morning. Our two children, who Belinda's 5 and Peter's 20 months, they do their walking, and my wife walks with them and carries Peter on her back, and other members help out. But that's the sort of thing we're all about, just getting out there and doing what you can and doing what you enjoy in life, rather than lying in bed doing nothing. And there's a great world out there, and there's so many things to experience with each other and to experience in the natural world as well.
That's good advice for someone with or without a disability.
Exactly.
Nicholas, one last question to you. You've abseiled, you've played cricket, you've got athletics, tandem skydiving, bungee jumping and scuba diving. There's got to be a few other things in the back of your mind that you would like to have a go at.
Well, I suppose foremost is the marathon, and I must admit that it's quite scary just thinking about the marathon, especially having finished that half marathon on Sunday. If you had asked me like 5 minutes after the event, I would have said, no, go away, leave me alone, forget it. But I think it's probably, the analogy I draw is it's probably like giving birth. Women seem to forget the pain not long afterwards and are prepared to do it again. And I think with long-distance runners, that's the same sort of situation. But besides marathons, the goal of the marathon event, I would love to trek the Himalayas. It's something which I've always wanted to do in my life. But it just has to go on the back burner until we can get over this goal, I think, for the moment.
Okay, so 1998, so you're going to trek the Himalayas before the year 2000 Olympics, eh?
We'll have to see what happens, Martin.
Yes. And you're going to try and
work with me.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, you wouldn't want me guiding you anywhere. I'm not even very good in the supermarket, mate. Listen, Nicholas Green, it's been a pleasure to talk to you this morning. And as I say, this Achilles Running Club and their history, hopefully maybe there will be an Achilles branch down here in the ACT in the future.
I might just leave a name and telephone number for any people who would like to either inquire about commencing a club down there, if they've got any inquiries, or even for those who may not be, probably wouldn't be able to attend training on a Sunday, but might like to enter some of the events as an Achilles member, if that's okay with you.
Certainly, Nick. Take the stage.
Great. It's Wendy Downs, and Wendy is the secretary for the Achilles Club in Sydney, but she's more than willing to provide any information to any state or territory. And her number is 0294168233. I might just repeat that.
You repeat that.
0294168233.
Okay, Nick Gleeson, all the best.
Thank
and
you,
listen, we'll expect a mobile phone call from the New York Marathon. Okay, I wanted it about the 41.5 kilometre mark.
Oh, you'll just hear me breathing, I think, at that point. But we'll definitely keep in touch and let your listeners know how we're progressing and the outcome of the three people who are hopefully aiming for that New York Marathon.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Nick Gleeson. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Nick Gleeson there, an inspiration to sighted and non-sighted, disabled and able-bodied athletes alike.